All right, there we are. All right. Well, we will call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. President Green will not be participating with us tonight, so he's asked me to facilitate the meeting. So we will get started with Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. We will get started with the approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second. All right, any questions or changes that you would like to see? All right, all those in favor then, it's been properly moved and second to approve the agenda, raise your hand. All right, any opposed? None, passes unanimous. We will accept this agenda and we will move right on to superintendent's report. Dr. Rodriguez.
All right, thank you very much. We are moving right along in any number of different things. I'll start with my usual kind of COVID update, which certainly don't want to be a catch-all, but it does include a lot of different pieces of a lot of different things. Number one, I'm still very thankful, and I mentioned this in December as well, that we sit here in January 21st and we still have students in our buildings. I know some of our colleagues have not been as fortunate at various points in time, but we still have students in our building. We are now on the very last day of first semester, which typically occurs before Christmas and before the winter holiday, but as you know, we started late in the school year and then pushed it back even later due to the pandemic. And so we are on officially the very last day of first semester today, and we will begin semester 2 on Monday. At this point in time, we're still very thankful, and I sent this to the board previous, that we will be able to start Monday in the exact same modes that we have been operating. With the new information that we had from our parents, we did have more individuals go from virtual to in-person. It was a net gain of about 245 students. So, you know, we moved some from in-person to virtual, but more from virtual to in-person. But even with that, our site principals worked very diligently with our teachers, and certainly our C&I department took on the brunt of all of this and made it work, that we were still able to keep the same modes of instruction. So our kindergarten, first and second grade students will continue to operate 4 days a week. That's a big deal and something that we certainly wanted with our very youngest and certainly most impressionable students, to still be able to be in our campus as many days as possible. Grades 3 through 8 will continue to be in a hybrid fashion for right now, and we're thankful for that to be the case. Obviously, the glaring thing is around the high school, and my hope is that over the course of the next several weeks that we can start to bring back some additional students. The numbers are going down. Obviously, in my conversation over the last 2 weeks, we didn't have a few conversations with the health department over the break, but we resumed when we came back. And over the course of the last 2 weeks, the numbers are going back down, which is a very good sign. We're not anywhere close to where we need to be as a county, but with the numbers starting to go down, we will begin those conversations again about when we can start to bring back some additional students. What I promised the high school staff is that we wouldn't go from where we are now to suddenly a full hybrid setting, and all of a sudden now there's going to be between 400 and 500 students on our campus on any given day, that we would start to build up to that. So we will start looking at how we can start adding some additional students and getting used to what that's going to look like. I'm also very excited to report that as we start doing vaccines, that's very, very good news. You've heard a lot of the news about other partnerships with, say, Truman Medical Center and some school districts and things like that. What I can tell you in just the most transparent way possible is some of that happened just in spite of everything, and it just happened really quickly. There was all of a sudden, a lot of the superintendents felt like they were in a spot where they had to kind of do things on their own, and they were calling and trying to kind of be frantic about what's going to happen with this. Jackson County still doesn't have enough vaccines quite yet for them to even move to the tier and the phase that we're in right now. They're in the same phase, but not the tier that would even include 65 and older. They're still doing individuals in that last tier. So they're not even at that point yet, but what I'm very thankful to be able to report was we actually were able to have a partnership with another organization within Kansas City, the Visiting Nurses Association. So I'm very proud of us being able to have this partnership with them. We actually sent out a survey to our staff on Wednesday, and since that time, already had several of our employees be able to sign up. So whenever we sent that out, as of even today, we have over 100 individuals that have signed up. Many of them would either fall into the category, there's about 30 that would be 65 and older that would be eligible immediately. And then we would also have individuals that have pre-existing conditions. So there is already 100 individuals that have been notified that they can schedule those vaccines starting next week. I actually can report, I haven't even told my team this yet, that I actually got a report today that a couple of our employees have already gone and received the vaccine. So it's really exciting to think that of the just over 100 employees that would immediately be eligible, if they were able to get vaccinated even by the end of next week, that's already, over 10% of our staff. So that's a fantastic start when I wasn't even sure that we were going to be able to start this in February. So we have over 300 already signed up to be notified, and that will continue to increase, I have no doubt. Again, they can go anywhere that they choose to go. If they choose to go with Jackson County or whoever they get, they may sign up for 3 different places and whoever calls them first. But again, for this to automatically be some of our individuals being able to go ahead and get that vaccine, it just helps us. It gets us closer to where we all want to be, with everybody being safe and making sure that we can get our students back in school. So it puts us on a good path. And considering when we first came back, I wasn't even sure what we were going to be able to do and when that would happen. We're in a really good spot right now. So with that, also, I know Ms. Deanda has reported previously about our in-house testing. That continues to occur at our high school as well. And so as we have individuals that come in contact or they're having symptoms, those kind of things of, I'm having symptoms, I'm concerned, but they can immediately get tested. We have that information right away, whether or not they can, you're still sick, so you need to go home. But many of them, it's like, I have just one of the symptoms. As you know, that symptom list is extremely lengthy. I've got a kind of a bad cough. That doesn't necessarily mean I need to go home, and they're negative. But it has, there is about maybe a 17% positivity rate that we've seen so far with just our internal testing. But again, we are only testing individuals who are symptomatic. So we don't just test anybody. So that's actually fairly low considering we're only testing individuals that are symptomatic, in my opinion. But it's still, I'm very thankful that we have it. I'm very thankful that we've been able to do it. And those individuals, when they find out they're positive, are thankful that because they didn't know. So it has gone extremely well, in my opinion, and I think we're getting a little bit better at it. Certainly, we have a lot of tests to be able to continue this process forward. We initially thought we'd be testing students as well. We haven't quite got to that point where we think that we should. And so we may change that at some point in time, but as of right now, we are still only testing our staff. Anything that I missed, Ms. Deanda, on that part?
I think you covered it.
So that's an extremely positive piece. Like I said, starting second semester, what I told the administrative staff today is this is an opportunity. We have an opportunity starting a new semester to really push forward. And my hope would be that we could start bringing kids back to school, especially at our high school, as soon as possible. That after spring break, do we finally get at a point where we've gone past the mandatory times that they're saying that you're safe after the second vaccine? Are we at that point after spring break? And maybe everybody that chooses to be back at our high school is back on a hybrid basis. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. So certainly it's a wait and see. And, I'm getting a lot of questions from parents too. And I'm trying to, remind them as much as I can in my videos and updates and everything of just, we all want the same thing. I remind them, and I know, a couple of you as well, are parents also. I have a high school student. I want my student to be in school. He wants to be in school desperately. So we hope that we can be there and actually everybody feel that they're in a safe place after we're able to go through that. So exciting news on the vaccine. I wanted to make sure and share that because that is recent. That, like I said, that literally just happened over the course of the last 72 hours. So very excited about that. We do have the board candidates. I'm going to flip the order just real quick. We do have two incumbents with Leonard Green and Chuck Thornforth. And certainly we have two additional individuals who have filed for the board in Carol Wardlow and Andrew Rexroth. So those two individuals have signed up, and so we will have an election come April. And so we wanted to make sure and mention that. And they may be watching this evening. If they are, thank you for your interest in being part of the school board. On board priorities updates, as you are well aware, this report is usually a little lighter than some of the other ones, since we literally had our last board meeting right before we went on a 2-week break, and then we've been back for about 2 weeks. There's still plenty of things that are going on. I just don't obviously put all of them on this particular list, but I will say, because I feel like it needs to be said, that it was a fantastic evening for the Grandview Education Foundation Trivia Night. Even had it not worked out this way, clearly, since the cabinet team was able to win the competition this year, I feel like it needs to be said in the open board meeting that you are looking at winners. And so we are very excited and very thankful to have done that. So,
Going out on a high note.
yeah.
All these years.
And I will say, we've not ever scratched the surface really in any year that we've ever done it, but it was
No, we're bad.
It was a good year.
We're bad.
We do real well
We have
until.
There you go.
Fun is what's most important.
Yeah. So, a lot of fantastic things going on. Obviously, a lot of our attention has been focused on the second semester and being prepared for that. I know there's going to be an academic update, but I won't say this during that time, but certainly Dr. King and her team working extremely hard to try to figure out where all these spots go and every kid and how many kids in every single building, and then working with the building principals to ensure that our staff and our students are still going to be safe while they're on campus. Our parents are still going to feel good about those pieces, changing classrooms, moving things around, asking some individuals in our staff members to do some things that maybe they hadn't been doing in the first semester. Some of our virtual teachers going back in the classroom, some of our classroom teachers maybe switching into some different roles. It's been a lot of work and effort, but our team is fantastic. Our teachers and our staff members have all risen to the challenge. And certainly I'm very appreciative in knowing that there's a lot of correlation with our COVID updates and HR and all the things that Ms. DeAnda is trying to operate on, and then trying to keep up with everything happening in our facilities and transportation. I mean, the team has been working extremely hard, but I'm proud of what we've been able to do and that our students are still in our building at this time. So happy to answer any questions, but that's the superintendent's update for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? I just have one quick one, and you may talk about it later, but what is the thought process currently, I know it may change, around bringing the high schoolers back? Are you still thinking about doing it from a grades perspective, or is there another method to the madness that you're thinking of right now?
We definitely look at some of our at-risk population and what's happening with some of the special populations and things like that. There may actually be a randomness to it in terms of truly maybe even a random generator kind of thing. And we hope that it'll kind of even be a pilot of this may happen, and then literally a couple weeks later, it may be, even doubling that and moving everybody in. So I'm hoping it's not like we're going to do 50 kids and then a month later 50 kids and piecemeal it that way. I would rather wait a couple more weeks as we get into February, and if I can see a consistent trend of everything moving back down, then we can start to bring more students back. If the vaccine kind of hits in that same spot, we may be the spot that we just feel comfortable bringing everybody back at that point too. So I don't know the exact answer to that question right now, but certainly at-risk populations start to become one of our primary concerns. And I know what is a student who is struggling can mean any number of different things. My kid struggles on a daily basis. His grades are pretty good, but he's struggling on a daily basis. So I would say my kid fits that profile. So everybody wants to be back in school. So it may be more random than that in terms of a true even random generator, but at-risk population is going to be one of our primary concerns to start with.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? All right, well, we will then move on to Salient Days, Dr. Rodriguez.
One, obviously, there's, right now, it's a board workshop scheduled for January 28th. And then, of course, our next board meeting, February 18th.
Very exciting. All right, any questions about that? Fantastic, moving right along. Finance Committee report, please, Mr. Forth.
Yes, good evening. Finance Committee met January 19th, 5:15 PM. In attendance with myself, Chuck Cornforth, board member Donald Kessinger, board member Monica Shirley, Miss Anne Marie Cook, assistant superintendent. There were no participants in the audience. Ms. Cook asked if there was any questions related to tonight's meeting prior. There were none. Inspections of warrants. The committee inspected representative warrants. Ms. Terry examined all warrants over 15,000. Mr. Kessinger examined the district's purchasing cards. Mr. Cornforth examined the expense and reimbursement warrants. Ms. Cook responded to questions. Based on the examination, the Finance Committee recommended that the warrants be approved by the Board of Education.
Well, thank you, sir, appreciate that. All right, we'll move right on to recapitulation of funds. Dr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, got a few things for you this evening and in terms of that update. So Ms. Cook.
Yeah, the finances in your packet are through the month of December. As I've shared before, December is one of my favorite months. It's when we start getting some significant receipts from Jackson County, and that did occur. Revenues are down about $1 million from this time last year. However, that is more because of reductions in state aid and food service and our taxes. We received almost $13 million in operating revenue from Jackson County, which is up from last year. You'll recall that some of it is the timing of the Fridays, but you'll recall that last year there was a lot of concern about the reassessment, and so some people were slower to pay or didn't pay for a while at all. So pleased to see that. A little note, we did have to borrow. I think I showed last month that we thought we would. We ended up borrowing $1.7 million. Fortunately, we only had to borrow it from Friday till Monday when our state aid came in, so it was very short term. But still, we would prefer to avoid that. On the expenditure side, we're down about $1.7 million. A lot of that is due to the timing of the expenditures, but we do have had some reductions. As you know, our payroll is one of the things we track, and that is right on target with where we want to be. Some foreshadowing. I'm pleased to report that on state aid, we shared with you that at the beginning of the year, the state, when it started right out at the beginning of the year with a reduction, and they've asserted that their intent is to have us fully funded and whole by the end of the year, and that percentage is going up. For example, in December, we were at 91%, and we just got our January state aid payment today, and it was at 93%. So they're trending in the right direction. So hopefully by the end of the year, we will in fact be fully funded. And I know some of you asked about, I think it was last month, Mr. Cornforth, you asked about the CARES funding. We have heard that there's additional funds coming. Actually, from what they said, it's some substantial funds potentially, but we haven't gotten final details, and we haven't gotten any way to get that money in our piggy bank. So not counting on anything quite yet, but hopeful that will come through, because as we said, that's certainly filling some gaps for us and putting us in a better position. So happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Mark? All right, we will move on then. Ms. Myers, did anyone register to speak for an agenda item tonight?
No one registered.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and second. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimous. Thank you. We'll move right along to our actions. Student success, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, so we have a few program evaluations this evening for you, and a CNI update this evening also. So I will turn it over to Dr. King.
And is that on?
Yes.
All right, so we have two program evaluations for you tonight. We have the library media, and then actually three, but the A+ and career and technical ed, we're going to combine and make that into one. So I have Mr. Sizemore is here to do the library media, and then Mr. Barbie will do the A+. Mr. Sizemore, you are up.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. Hopefully you can see my screen here. So I'm going to start tonight with the Library Media Center's program evaluation. And in your packet, you should have the full program evaluation, which includes a lot of data and statistics. So tonight I really wanted to focus on some of the key points from that evaluation and just talk a little bit about where our library media centers are and where we see them kind of going in the future. So real quick, just some statistics, because I was interested to see if how much COVID would have affected at the end of last year our circulation totals. So we were pleased to see that in most of our buildings, we didn't really see a huge impact. It was kids were still checking items out and still getting access to those items. That we did see a drop in some buildings. I don't know that we can definitely attribute that to COVID, but I think it's good for us to see that our students were still getting access to these resources despite the major disruption in their lives otherwise. Several years ago, about 6 years ago, our focus with the library media centers really was about making sure that our media centers remained relevant learning spaces for our students. So the way that students access information has changed a lot, as we know, over the past 10 years. And the type of information that students seek out has also changed. So we really had a focus on how can we change the media centers to make them more relevant for our students, but also make sure that we maintain that focus on literacy. So over the past several years, our library media specialists have really done a fantastic job at turning their spaces into places that are more relevant for our students. So creating maker spaces, green screens, you can see some pictures here, collaborative spaces. A lot of the funds that they've spent over the last couple of years have been on creating these very collaborative spaces for kids to be able to work together and to be able to do innovative type projects. So our media specialists, although the district really encouraged this kind of shift in the purpose of the media center, they really have spearheaded it and have run with it and done a really fantastic job over the last several years in really making sure that those spaces are still relevant for our students and for our teachers. I think that COVID really has also sent our media specialists into new areas of thinking, as it has all of us. We've seen a lot of innovation over the last year in all areas because we're forced to be creative in how we get our jobs done. So another area that many of our library media specialists have expanded into is creating these digital spaces. There's a couple of examples here. A Conwest librarian who has a Twitter account for her library, and a high school librarian who has a Facebook page for her library. So really trying to find ways to stay in contact with kids, offer them digital resources, and really meet the needs of the students who are not necessarily able to come into the library. So I think that we've talked about this in other areas, that there's several positive things that we are seeing coming out of this pandemic. And that is really, thinking outside of the box and really pushing the envelope in areas that maybe we were afraid to in the past, but we didn't have a choice now in order to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students. And also our library media specialists have done a good job at expanding digital resources to our students, so ebooks, making sure that, they can get those books on the devices that the district provides to them, and that they have access to, just as many resources digitally as they do in print in the actual library. So our library media specialists, I just wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out, because like everyone, when COVID hit, they really had to do kind of a turn on a dime, and they've really had to take on some additional responsibilities while still maintaining, the responsibilities that they have within their traditional media centers. So they played a really integral role in our device distributions and the management of our new devices that we brought in, the inventorying of those devices, and the process of checking those devices out to students. So I think that that's been a really positive thing. I don't think that a lot of our buildings really could have accomplished some of the things that they have with device distribution without these positive contributions from the library media specialists. So I think that in the evaluation, our determination is that we've come a long way in making sure that our media centers are relevant places for our staff and students. But I think that we really need to kick it up a notch, and we need to continue to move down that road. And so I think we need to be more systematic about it. So in the past, it's really been, this is kind of the goal of the district, what we want these spaces to be like. And then our library media specialists kind of run with it, and they, do a lot of hard work designing areas for their students. But it's really, they are doing that on their own in their individual libraries. So I think moving forward, we really need to get more systematic about how we envision our library media systems in our education system. And a couple of recommendations that I would highlight from the program eval is the development of a task force to do a couple of different things. First, I think in line with Dr. Rodriguez's cultural competency is doing a examination of the cultural relevance of our library collections to our student populations. So making sure that the resources that we're purchasing and that we're providing to our students, that they can see themselves in those resources, and that it's culturally relevant to all of our students. Another one is having that task force really examine further what we see as the role of the Library Media Center in a modern school, and with all the changes that we're making with career and technical education, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and how we do school, we're changing those things. How do we see the role of the Library Media Center changing to meet those needs? So I think having a task force that can really look at that and develop a systematic plan for identifying what we envision those media centers looking like, and then creating a plan for the implementation of those media centers. So those are kind of the highlights from the program evaluation. Again, I just want to reiterate that our media specialists really deserve a lot of credit for helping make sure that we get the students the resources that we need over the pandemic in the last year. They played a really integral role in doing that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
With are the virtual students able to come into media centers and schools and pick up books?
Yes, we also have a bus distribution as well. The drivers will take them around to them as well.
Great.
Is what we have. It'll be unable to continue that after we've brought more and more students back, but that's how we originally began. And now it is open for them to come at certain hours. And we are actually seeing more of our virtual students are definitely checking books out.
Great, thank you.
It was very nice collaboration between transportation and CNI from the very beginning around that, which was one of the coolest things, the distribution of books on the buses and things like that as they were delivering food. It was really neat.
Any other questions about that for Scott, or I'm gonna have him go right into the career and technical.
I have one quick one.
Yeah.
In the, I think you touched on it, that you're not 100% sure why some of the schools had significant drops. One of the ones that concerned me the most was the Butcher Green drop in checkouts.
Mhm.
Since we don't know if it was COVID related or not, thoughts around ensuring that kind of disparity doesn't continue to happen?
Yes, when I saw that was that, and there's one other one, I was like, that seems to be a little more alarming. What are we doing in terms of the outreach? And then also, where do we need to go further with it, is how do we take it to them rather than having them come in as well? So I think that is definitely we're gonna address.
Alrighty. Continue
We're
on.
gonna go to A plus. We'll go to A plus next. We're gonna go to A plus. Mr. Barbie, or Dr. Barbie, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry.
Hey, you're up.
Did I jump up in line too fast? I apologize.
No, you go right ahead. You're awfully anxious. We like it. You go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Hi, guys. I hope everyone can hear me. I am Brad Barbie, and I'm here to present the A+ Schools Program Evaluation and reporting for the 2019-20 school year part of it for Sheila Jackson, who was the A+ coordinator before me, and for this year for myself so far. The program details for us during the 2019-20 school year, we served 448 students with one staffing coordinator. The funding, total district operating budget for the position was $62,566 plus $400 for supplies. The salary was taken from the 2019-20 coordinator budget. We focused on student success and family and community involvement. The measurable objectives, as they have been since we appointed the full-time coordinator, have been to a 10% raise from the time the program started until the 2019-20 school year, both in the amount of students enrolled and the number of students who received A+ funds. This is measured by annual data on post-secondary employment education reports, student clearinghouse, annual graduation surveys, college and vocational technical school enrollments, and from Grandview High School graduates. During the 2019-20 A+ school year, the A+ enrollment was 370 out of 1067 students that were signed up for the A+ Schools program. That's 35% of our total population in 2019-20. The grade level breakdown was 45 freshmen, 100 sophomores, 118 juniors, 109 seniors. There were 267 female participants and 180 males. 57 of our seniors enrolled in the A+ program met all the requirements for the scholarship eligibility, which is 95% attendance, 2.5 unweighted GPA, and at least 50 hours of tutoring or mentoring experience, which was lowered last year to 25 due to COVID. MCC released data and indicated that 26 members from the class of 2019 and 20 accessed classes at MCC schools during the 19-20 school year. GHS A+ recipients may be enrolled at other A+ post-secondary institutions in Missouri and still receive their benefits. Since state designation in the fall of 2012, GHS has designated 413 eligible A+ candidates. Our findings: participation in the A+ program has increased from 256 total students in 11-12 to 370 for the 19-20 school year who were active participants. Increased availability of full-time A+ coordinator has enabled targeted individual conferences with GHS students, as well as receiving a much more frequent and immediate contact with the Grandview population. The A+ coordinator partnership with the MCC through the mobile enrollment program results in students making early informed decisions to promote a successful transition to post-secondary programs and careers. And the A+ tutoring lab was available to all GHS students in the library on scheduled days of availability from 2:30 to 4 for intervention support up until we left for COVID. This also assists A+ students in completing their 50 hours of peer tutoring or mentoring services, which is required by the program. The coordinator worked beyond contract hours to make sure the support was possible on a regular basis. In the 2019-20 school year, the coordinator and student volunteers supported the following community events. And this is quite a few things that they were able to do last year, even before we got out early. Centralized enrollment, the SWOPE cross country event, summer school enrollment night, High Grove messy night, PTA founders dinner, the trunk or treat at High Grove, the foundation 5K, the trivia night, Rotary Holiday Senior Citizen Luncheon, Math and Science Night, Sweet Hot Jazz, the Martin City Family Fitness Night, GVPD Turkey Run, and the Grandview Youth Court. The A+ volunteers mentored and tutored Grandview High School students and also students at our lower schools during our Bulldog block, also during part day senior schedules. They were able to get out and go to other schools and or work with our kids in our building, and in various other areas, including Link, while we were in person. Due to the transition to distance learning, the state of Missouri reduced the number of hours from 50 to 25, which actually, and exempted the math EOC testing requirement, which actually helped a lot of our kids to be able to make the requirement this year. They also extended it 6 months past their graduation date, which had not been done in the past. Students were offered opportunities to continue earning mentoring or tutoring hours via mentoring, tutoring siblings, creating presentations about the A+ Schools program, and other means of acquiring hours via service to the community. The A+ coordinator visited our college and career readiness classes last year to present A+ program information to freshman students during first semester. When they were scheduled to do it during second semester, we were already off. They also participated in 8th grade transition activities in order to create earlier connections for students' path to college and career readiness. The A+ coordinator also took on additional duties in support of GHS Learn and Serve and GHS Cadet teaching programs, in addition to assisting with coordination of standardized testing. The A+ coordinator also represented CSD4 at all district, regional, and state A+ meetings. In conclusion, for the 1920 school year, GHS needs to continue to work through earlier identification of post-secondary plans. This goes along with our college and career readiness things that we are putting in place with all students in order for students to better understand the impact of GPA, the impact of attendance, and the importance it has to make sure that they kind of know what they want to do with their lives before they matriculate. This is being served by the CCR program and identification of building of career pathways in the district, and with partners in the micro region in which we work with Center and Hickman Mills. Additional opportunities will need to be made available for students to complete their tutoring and mentoring hours outside of Grandview High School as enrollment in the A+ program grows. Lack of transportation to elementary tutoring and mentoring sites continues to be an issue for some underclassmen, and additional tracking is necessary to ensure students meet new state assessment guidelines related to the Algebra 1 EOC. Recommendations would be to continue to have a full-time A+ program coordinator on site because the kids need it. Continue early awareness of A+ program requirements and advantages through 8th grade classroom visits, parent nights, enrollment, and other parental involvement transitional activities. To increase participation in the A+ program, we're working closely with freshman advisory groups, as well as the career exploration classes. To continue to monitor the program and the eligibility requirements as it pertains to the way the state changes things, to improve early college planning activities for students so that they can make informed decisions about post-secondary plans, to continue to collect and utilize career and technical enrollment and achievement data, and to inform planning to deliver effective programming, to work closely with our GHS junior and senior advisors, which our advisories are now mixed, but this was a recommendation from last year, to identify students planning to attend one of the A+ eligible post-secondary institutions, and to work closely with the MCC, because that's where most of our kids go, to provide mobile enrollment to GHS seniors. The 2021 updates. Since I've taken over the program, our current enrollment is at 327. We did graduate quite a few kids last year, and the way that we're enrolling kids this year had to change because we didn't have in-person enrollment night for all of our freshmen. This number should increase by at least, current enrollment is 320. So this number should increase by at least 50 students after our college and career readiness course presentations this spring. Since registration was virtual this year, we were not able to enroll the number of students in the program we would have. We have attacked this in a variety of ways. Our CCR teachers have presented to half the class of 2024 and are presenting to the other half this spring. Formal communication was sent to all current A+ students verifying their status during fall semester. Our formal email communication was sent to all students and parents 2 different times during first semester, offering them the opportunity to enroll in the program. A+ information and student agreements were presented to each grade level through WIN classes. And also we have updated and made sure that information is constantly available on our guidance website and on the A+ Schools webpage. during the school year have coordinated with Hernan and Summit Technology to facilitate virtual tours, which a lot of our kids took part in, and discussions of programs for teachers and students of their campuses. An STA Herndon interest inventory was presented to students virtually through the WIN classes. Updated post-secondary institution lists and designated campuses with on-campus housing options are available. Coordinated through Prep KC, a virtual FAFSA night for senior students and their parents, which was pretty well attended for a virtual event. We had over 20 students show up, and then another 25 took part in it when it was already recorded and on our website. We coordinated through Prep KC in our senior English classes a virtual college fair. Students were asked to view presentations from local colleges and universities, and using a fee waiver, they were able to fill out at least one college application. Ongoing facilitation of tutoring opportunities on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays after school in the cafeteria, as well as coordinating students for various Grandview C4 school district events as allowed by COVID restrictions, has continued. We continued to communicate with the Department of Education on the things that they have changed this year. They have again dropped the requirement from 50 hours to 25, and they have made the adjustment again in the Algebra 1 scores. They're taking into account ACT and GPA, so it's a little bit of a change from last year, but we're keeping our eye on that and trying to keep the seniors monitored. Updated A+ scholarship, the website, the forms, the manual, et cetera, have all been updated. We reevaluated and implemented changes to tutoring and mentoring requirements. We've been working with our testing and in our guidance center to identify seniors still in need of the Algebra 1 EOC and to get them in to take it if needed. And the A+ coordinator this year has assumed extra duties of college and career coordinating, acting as a liaison to the micro-region cooperating schools, our career education consortium, our career pathway leads, our early college programs, our internships at our business partners, and our connections through Prep KC. We continued our Cerner partnership, where we have kids involved in an early program learning about coding and then software development, and then going into real person-to-person internships with workers there. We launched a graphic design early college program through Avila with 10 kids. We've launched early college programs through the Longview campus MCC and cooperated with our micro-region and our career education consortium schools to offer more professional development opportunities to our professional staff that have to do with career and college education. Our goals as we continue is to increase program participation via the college and career readiness classes, both fall and spring, our middle school promotions in the spring, and incoming transfer students. We'd like to increase post-secondary exploration opportunities of our certified and degreed staff. We'd like to establish an A+ community advisory board made up of interested parents and business partners. We'd like to update the A+ school program goals and performance standards because they haven't been looked at in a couple of years, and then increase and streamline communication with students, parents, staff, and community stakeholders. And these are just a few, just for fun, pictures of our kids after school trying to get some work done. And there was one story that I would like to share before I get off. We have a girl, we're always looking right now for kind of interesting ways to get our tutoring hours done. And I've had some kids come to me with some really cool ideas. One of them in particular, Alexia Jaime, who is one of the neatest kids. She's a junior. She's played softball for me the last couple of years. Came to me with an idea of getting a couple of her friends and going to one of our lower elementary teachers that she had in school and asking if she could do a virtual reading program with her kids. And she just got that off the ground this week. She was supposed to send me pictures. They didn't get to me in time tonight. I was going to send you some screenshots of them doing that, but I thought it was a really, really neat idea. Thank you. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask.
Thank you. Questions? All right, well, I have one because everybody else is shaking their head no. What percentage of those that sign up for the A+ program, let's say in their freshman or sophomore year, don't actually participate in the program? You shared with us how many qualified, but how many sign up and then don't do anything?
It is unfortunately a pretty high percentage of kids that just go on and even some that have the GPA and the attendance requirements that don't pursue their tutoring hours. And what I've been trying to communicate with the kids and their parents this year is even if you don't plan to go to a community college, because many of our four-year schools don't offer an incentive. They might offer a little bit of a scholarship, but the state of Missouri doesn't pay, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education doesn't sponsor the A+ Schools program at four-year colleges. We've been trying to get them to understand that no matter what, you have 4 years after you graduate from high school to use the 2 years that you have available to you, and we'd like to see that increase. I think it's something that really needs to be worked on.
What are your thoughts on how to increase that percentage?
I think it's communication. We have to get kids to buy into the idea that you don't know what your plan. You think your plan may be that I'm going to go to, let's say, Howard University. So I'm going to go out of state. I'm going to go to a four-year school. I don't need A+. And then you go and something happens and you have to come back. Wouldn't you like to have that available to you? It just makes sense. And then especially to our kids who might think, and we have some kids on the other end that might think, well, you know, I've decided I'm not going to college. Well, you might change your mind within 2 or 3 years after school. So I think we have to communicate more. I think it has to be as much, once we get back in person, it has to be in person, face to face, maybe even one-on-one with quite a few of the juniors and the kids that are not quite at the position where they're seniors and they can see the end yet, but talking to them about the idea that is something they need to focus on. It's a great question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
That's all I have is all three of my children participated and finished the A+ program. My first two children didn't use it per se. Both though were able to receive an additional type scholarship though, since they had completed it. Since they were NAIA, they don't offer, you know, that they did acknowledge it. And then Rachel is currently using it. So it was my first experience finding actually get to have a child use it. She's attending St. Louis Community College, and it's been amazing to not have to pay for college. Books, yes, which is interesting, but it has been, it's really a neat program. So it's a great opportunity for kids to use something that's right there. And Booster Club appreciates it because we get them to work in the concession stand, which is a great opportunity that we love. But it's an amazing program.
So both of mine used it, and it was like that. There's no other option. You're going to do this because your first 2 years are going to be paid at community college if you choose to go on. And I think a lot of it is thinking now on how we frame what does tutoring mean and look like, and how we package that. And that is going to be key, is then understanding that it doesn't have to look in a certain way. Both of my children did it, and their tutoring experience looked vastly different. And this was 10, 15 years ago that they went through, which is really weird for me to say that they've been that long. My oldest is turning 34 this year. And he got to go to an elementary school to a certain classroom to do his tutoring, and the other one chose a different route on the tutoring that she wanted to do. So I think it is, do we know the children well enough to know where is that your interest lies, and how do I arrange for that to happen for you?
100%.
And thinking about it. So I think that is going to be key going forward, is how we increase this.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate you.
You too.
All right, then we're going to go back to Mr. Sizemore, and we're going to go to the CTE evaluation program. Mr. Sizemore?
Okay. Yeah, I have a senior this year too, so love A+. It's fantastic. So turning to the CTE program evaluation, this is the career and technical education. Hold on, I'm having an issue here. Career and technical education. This is, I can't think of an area in our district. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't think of an area in our district that we've seen more change over the past 2 years than this one. So we've also seen kind of emerge from what career and technical education traditionally has been considered, and really what it's morphed into now. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that and just kind of updating you on where we're at. Again, you have the full program eval with a lot of data and statistics. I'll touch on some of that, but I really want to talk about kind of our progress that we've seen over the past couple of years. So career and technical education, it's always been a big focus for our district. I've always loved the fact that from the day that I came here and even prior to that, it was obvious that the community and the school board and the leadership in the district really valued career and technical education programs. So it's always been a big focus, but typically, whenever I come and give this program evaluation every 2 years, it's a lot of new information. Even though it's a big priority, it's sometimes things that we haven't really openly talked about in a board meeting. Usually, we were dealing with things like Project Lead the Way and Pro Start and other of those very traditional kind of career and technical education programs. So it's kind of shifted away from that to now we talk a lot about real world learning, and that's something that we've updated the board on quite a bit over the past at least year, and a little bit beyond that. And I think real world learning it's how it's changed. It's our same CTE programs. It's just really expanding into including every kid. And that's, I think, the real power of it is we're not talking about a small group of kids. We're talking about every single student in our school district. So it's become a prime focus. It's not just a priority, but it's one of our number one focuses of our school district. And again, over the past 2 years, the area where I think we've seen the most, kind of movement and action. So a lot of that has kind of merged, where in the past I would talk to you about our enrollment numbers in Project Lead the Way and other traditional career and tech education programs. That data is still in the report, but now we're really looking at participation in all of the programs that we offer and expanding those opportunities for our students so that we can do, as you see here, we can provide a pathway for every student. So prior to the Kaufman work, our CTE work in the district was already moving away from that traditional CTE focus. So Dr. Rodriguez, has said, I'm sure you've heard many times, that he wants to ensure that when every student walks across that stage, that they have a path, and that they've had a purposeful path during their time in Grandview that has helped prepare them for the next stage, whatever that choice may be. And a lot of that is about exposing kids to opportunities, but then also providing them with experiences and activities that actually give them a leg up whenever they leave Grandview High School to pursue whatever their dreams are for their career. So this work was started before that Kaufman work, and it's kind of morphed into it since then. So I think you've seen these before. We do have some newer board members. So I did try to include some information that most of you have seen before, because I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. But part of that process before we started with the Kaufman work was developing the academy system at the high school. And that's really identifying these broad buckets of interest that students have in a career field. So you see here we have our health and human services, engineering, manufacturing and technology, business and communication, and the arts. These are very broad. So someone who expresses an interest in health and human services, we're talking about literally hundreds of different potential career paths. So our goal early on is really just to get a kid to express an interest in a broad area and then move on from there. So again, you probably have heard this, but just to review, our goal is to take that very broad area that a student chooses and to identify more specific pathways underneath each one of those academies that acts a little bit like a funnel. It allows kids to kind of enter the funnel at the top where it's big and broad. And then as they learn more and they're exposed to more experiences, it kind of funnels them down into a very specific path that allows them to really focus in on a specific career. One thing that we did last year that I think has been extremely beneficial is that we created a B salary stipend called the Academy Lead. And these are teachers at the high school who are passionate about the work that we're doing in career and technical education. And they have, come on board to kind of lead the work with the other teachers in developing those pathways and ensuring that we create these really wonderful experiences for kids. The reason I think that's so important is because it's kind of grassroots. It's, identifying these teachers who are passionate and letting them get together and collaborate and really kind of lead this effort. Anytime that other teachers see their colleagues passionate about something and engaged in something, they're going to have a lot more buy-in than if central office is just coming over and saying, here's what we think you should do. So I think that that's a positive thing that we've done in the last year to really help move us forward with these programs. So just again, a quick review, because I know some are new, but kind of the model that we have for how these pathways work. Again, it's kind of the funnel starting broad. So in 9th grade, the students are all exploring, they're taking a career exploration course. They're getting exposed to all kinds of information about potential careers and activities. And then from there, they identify that broad kind of, big picture interest that they have, and they commit to one of those academies. And they can change back and forth. It may set them back a little bit. They may take one less course if they switch a lot, but the goal is really just to provide the students the flexibility to be able to explore their interests and make sure that the education that they're getting with us is relevant to their next steps and that they see it as relevant. So in 10th grade, they're taking a more specific pathway courses, and they're kind of narrowing that interest. And we're offering activities and opportunities outside of the classroom that also help them kind of develop those interests. And then in 11th grade, they're taking advanced coursework, dual credit in most situations where it's applicable, IRCs, which are the industry recognized credentials. And again, I know that this is a repeat, but just to reiterate, because I think it's so important, that this is not about sending kids off to college. If the career pathway that they choose requires a college degree, then that's fantastic. We're going to put those opportunities in front of them. But we have a ton of really high paying jobs that have high demand that would be very positive for our students and for our community. And so not every pathway is necessarily going to benefit from a dual credit opportunity. So having authentic work experiences or an industry recognized credential as part of that could also be just as important. And then the most important component is that capstone experience. And this is as close as we can get to a real world work experience for these students. So again, there's more dual credit if they have it available to them, more IRCs, developing a post-secondary plan for what comes next, and an experience that is outside of the classroom in most cases. So a good example, we have a couple of these in place right now. Our Pathway to Tech program where students go to Cerner. Obviously with COVID, that's a little bit different right now, but under normal circumstances, they would go there every day. Our new program that we started this year, Pathways to Technology, the students actually would go to Avila every day to take college courses there and to work with industry professionals. So those are kind of examples of the type of capstone experiences that we're trying to provide to our students. And then of course, we know that it can't just be at the high school. And this is, in our plans moving forward, making sure that we have in pre-K through 8th, that we have career exploration activities, that we're really embedding essential skills into the curriculum. What, has traditionally been referred to as soft skills. These are skills that industry professionals say we need all kids to have these things like collaboration and, good communication skills and things like that. And then having rigorous instruction and high expectations so that when students get to those opportunities, that they're prepared to make the most out of them. And then also making sure that we have post-secondary options for students from there. So that's where kind of the Kauffman grant came in, which was a really fantastic opportunity for us to really scale some of the work that we were already doing. And just a quick review, the Kaufman, their goal is by 2030 that all high school students across the region graduate with market value assets and a diploma. So it's really that traditional diploma plus a market value asset, which is, I think, 2 years from now when we do this program eval, instead of some of that more traditional data that we have been collecting, this will be the type of data that we're really sharing with you, and that is the attainment of market value assets by our students. So again, the Kaufman initiative is, we're not doing this in a silo. It's our entire region. So we're a part of that very first cohort. Very happy to be a part of that. And we have 2 additional cohorts coming from behind. And I think the important point about this is to say that we can't afford not to do this. Our students deserve these opportunities, and we would only widen gaps of inopportunity for our students if we were not to move forward with these types of programs. So in year 1, we got a $70,000 design and planning grant, which was used really to fund those academy lead positions and really being able to visit school districts and schools to see what's working in other places. This year, we earned the year 2 pilot grant, which was $150,000. The majority of those funds are, a good chunk of those funds are going to pay for the equipment for our advanced manufacturing program that we are rolling out next year. So that's a very exciting program that we look forward to sharing with you in the future. And then year 3, at the end of this year, we'll have the opportunity to tell Kaufman why, we should be able to really scale these types of programs. And the year 3 funding is, could be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. So I think that that's really exciting. The opportunities there for us to really make a huge difference, I think, are really exciting. So I think it's important to note that, we're building this plane as we fly it, which isn't something that's always comfortable, but this is big stuff. We're completely changing how high school is done. So there's no way that we can just develop this plan and implement it all at once, because we would have to wait 10 years before we start really providing any kind of real experience for our students. So we are kind of piecing these programs together with the ultimate goal of, in 3 to 4 years, that we have opportunities for all of our students to earn those MVAs. So just a real quick, because this is going to be the important stuff that we're going to report to you in the future, which is our attainment of these MVAs. The work experiences is an internship. So it's very specific, 120 hours within a calendar year. At least 60 of those hours are on site. So we're going to try to provide internship experiences for all of our students. And client projects, which I think is an important component of it, which is working with actual industry partners to identify real world projects and having our students actually complete those projects. We already have that taking place in several of our programs, and the engagement level among students is really through the roof, because they see it as so much more relevant and serious than some of the traditional work they do in other classes. The college credit is pretty self-explanatory. For it to be a market value asset, you need 9 or more college hours. So that's been a challenge for us. We've always offered dual credit, but we haven't always had to where a lot of students could earn 9 or more credits within an industry recognized area. So we have had a big push to expand those dual credit opportunities. We're working with UMKC and Metropolitan Community Colleges. We've already expanded with MCC and are looking to do more with UMKC next year. And then, of course, we've also rolled out our virtual dual credit options through Missouri State and Ozark Technical College. So I think we've made some good headway here, and we definitely have some more work to do. Then looking at that industry recognized credential, this is a list of actual credentials. So these are things that a license, something that you actually need to be able to practice in a certain field. So, like a Cisco certification in IT, or an OSHA certification in construction. those are just examples, these real world credentials that we will align our curriculum to in our pathways to prepare students to earn these credentials as they progress through the program. And then finally, the entrepreneurial experiences, which I think is a big component, is really pushing the entrepreneurial spirit with our students and having them really think about how they could take their interest and really turn it into their own business and turn it into something that they develop as opposed to going to work for someone else. So those are the things that we're going to be really measuring as we move forward. So the way we looked at this over the past 2 years is we looked at what is it that we currently have that is offering MBAs and how can we scale it? And then we looked at what are the things that we're offering that don't quite meet the level of earning an MBA, but if we enhance it, if we add something to it, we can turn it into an MBA option. And then what do we need to create from scratch that will allow enough pathways for all students to really have a viable option? So that's kind of the strategy we used in the development of the pathways that we have lined out in our Kauffman 3-year strategic plan. So just real quickly, in our first year, Dr. King really set the stage with our kickoff of our Kauffman work at the high school by saying, if we could reimagine the high school experience, what would it look like? Because a big part of this, the roadblocks are really in our minds. It's a mindset. It's our inability to really think outside of our traditional way in which we've done school. So we spent a lot of time trying to get our teachers really to think outside the box and think about what the real opportunities are. We talked about how relevant is the education we're providing to our students and how do they view it as relevant? What evidence do we have to support that? Those are the kind of things that we discussed as we met and really laid out the plan for how we would attack expanding these programs. And then we looked at one of the first things we did is we pretended we were 5 years in the future and that this initiative horribly failed. And so we did a post-mortem, actually a pre-mortem. We did a pre-mortem analysis where we tried to identify if this is going to fail, what are going to be the things that are going to make it fail so that we could think about what those roadblocks are and really build into the system ways for us to get around those, which I think was really effective. Now, that was just something we used as kind of a way to get teachers thinking about that.
It wasn't a story.
Yeah, we had Grandview graduates excel because of real world learning, and then we have Grandview High School in ruins because of poor planning. So that was the two, it's going to be one of these two. And so if this second one is the one that happens, what do we think are the things that are going to make it fail? And that really, I think, helped us really tackle some of the big challenges to doing something big like this. Instead of kind of pushing them to the side and worrying about them whenever they come up, I think it was good for us to be able to tackle those right away. So again, it was really just about mindset and focusing on getting our teachers to have a different mindset about education. We spent a lot of time meeting with people from the Kauffman Foundation, from a national organization called Getting Smart, and really looking at school districts all around the country and seeing what works. So not just building something from scratch. Yes, it has to fit us. It has to be ours. It has to be Grandview, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can find things that work and we can make them fit for us. So that was a big focus of ours, having people come in and look at our shops and talk about our advanced manufacturing pathway. We worked with Honeywell. We worked with Kauffman to really make sure that we don't want to assume what a machine tool operator needs to get a job. We don't want to assume that we know that. We want to go ask the people that hire machine tool operators, what do these people need in order to get a job with you? So they help us design the program and to design the curriculum. So a lot of what we did in that first year was really collaborating around those things. Those are our academy leads who went and visited a school in Boise, Idaho, that really, I think, did a great job of blowing people's minds and making them go, oh, we can think differently. So that was really, really excellent. Now, this is teachers visiting our students at Cerner, which was a great experience to see those students in a professional setting. It was really eye-opening for our teachers. And then this was visiting a school called Iowa Big, which is, don't have a lot of time to talk about, but is really kind of a model for how we see some of our programming evolving kind of in the future. So I'll get through these real quick. So we submitted our 3-year plan in May, strategic plan to Kaufman. These are the programs that we've lined out. So we already implemented design in early college this year. And I think it's an incredible tribute to our high school team that in the middle of a pandemic, and when we have third-party partners like Avila and MCC who aren't telling us if these programs are going to be able to go forward or not, so we get kind of late notice, that we were able to make these programs happen and fill our seats with Grandview students. So we have 10 students who go virtually right now, but in the future will go to Longview every day, and they're earning 9 credit hours a semester. And so the fact that we were able to pull that off in a pandemic, I think is a great tribute to our high school team and their commitment to being flexible and making sure that we take advantage of these opportunities. So next year, pathway to engineering and healthcare, this is some of that low-hanging fruit that we already kind of had in place with our Project Lead the Way programs that we could just enhance. We could add a client project to it and make it an MBA attainable pathway. Advanced manufacturing is our big one. So this is what we're really excited about, because in our area, there's not a lot of high schools that still have shops. And we have shops, and we have students who love taking our shops classes. What we want to do is make sure that the experiences in that shop class is relevant to a student's interest in a career field. So not just making a birdhouse, but learning how to be a machine tool operator. So this is something we're excited about. We're going to be rolling out a computer integrated manufacturing class next year. And again, we're working with Honeywell and metropolitan community colleges on this program. So students will leave after they graduate high school. They will have more than half of the credits they need to attain a mill or lathe operator's certification. Honeywell on a regular basis has starting positions for machine tool operators at $37 an hour. So it's good for them, and it's good for our students and our families and our community. So we're excited about that. We have a public safety, which right now is fire science, but will also expand in the future to police that's starting next year. And then we have a performing arts. So theater, I think is really exciting that we're not leaving out the arts, that there are very viable careers in the arts, and we have students that are interested in that. And then moving on from there. Now, after we get past into the 22 and beyond, these are things that we have planned out, that there's flexibility there. So this is kind of our plans when we submitted our strategic plan, but it could change over time. But right now, this is what we will be rolling out next year. And we're very excited about really seeing a major transformation at Grandview High School starting next year. So I'm sorry if I'm really excited about this stuff and get passionate about it. So I'm sorry if I talked too much, but I'm happy to take any questions that you have about any of the information in the program eval or what we just talked about.
Any questions? It's exciting.
We've presented information like this before. We keep saying we're going to bring additional information to you. And so, there's more updates coming and more things as we lead into certainly in the next school year, but still a lot of things continuing to happen regardless of pandemic or not.
So I mean, this is kind of where I would say, and Scott did a great job of articulating it very, very well, is if school is not relevant, we need to stop doing what we're doing. We need to make it relevant to all students. Part of what when I was hired, he said every student has to have a plan. We have to scale it in a way that makes it, to make it realistic. But these kids don't get another chance. This is what they get. And so it is up to us to make sure that we put the gas on this, is that we need this needs to happen, and it needs to happen at all levels. And you're going to see in a little bit why it is so important that we have high expectations and we have high rigor at our elementaries for reading and writing and math, because to get to this level of what we want to do, we've got to start there and get it to where we need it to be. And it's going to take a lot to turn a ship to make this work. But why wouldn't we do it? Because it's that important, and it's why I come to work every day, to make that kind of thing happen. So I know that was a long program eval, but that is what we do, and this is why it matters, is because we are creating the future for this community and for these students that goes far beyond anything that we do in 4 years of high school. So thank you, Mr. Sizemore.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All righty. Well, we do need to approve these, so I will entertain a motion.
I recommend we approve the A+ program, library media centers, and career and technical education program evaluations as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the A+ program, library media centers, and career technology programs as presented. Any further discussion? All right, if not, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? None? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. CNI update, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yes, we have several things this evening just to give you an update on, as well as some data pieces that I know our curriculum instruction team want to update, as we said we would. So I'll turn over to Dr. King and her team.
Okay, just a quick update on second semester. We said that we brought that in, and Dr. Rodriguez alluded to it in his opening remarks. We were able to make sure that pre-K through second grade stays 4 days a week. That was not without pain. I'm going to let you know right now, and there are some teachers that we have, we no longer have library media specialists in 3 buildings. They are now in classrooms. We have taken reading specialists out of their roles and put them into classrooms. We have taken an instructional coach to put into classrooms so that we could create space so that we can keep these kids here 4 days a week. And so I do want to honor and let you all know that there was a lot, and we are expecting a lot out of teachers to be able to make this shift happen. And they are making it happen. We were able to take it at Martin City, some of those partitions down in some rooms to create bigger space so that we could keep, without adding a teacher, we could have more space so the kids could socially distance. So we really tried to think as creatively as we could to make this continue to happen. I told Dr. Rodriguez, I said, we can go back to 2 days a week. I mean, I can make that, there will be no change at all, or there can be significant changes in every building for us to continue to happen. And he said, let's make it happen. Let's find out. We surveyed the teachers. The teachers overwhelmingly were in favor of continuing 4 days a week. And the principals were overwhelmingly wanting to continue 4 days a week. So we made it happen. No classroom, the highest classrooms will be at Martin City, and that's the bigger space, and they will be sitting at 17 or 18 every day. The rest of them are, I think the highest is 15 or 16 at one of our buildings. That was what it was before. So we were able to make it happen. The majorities are still 10 to 12 students per classroom. And we always, since this has happened, more people have enrolled, and so we're constantly having to shift. And so we've actually taken 5 students from this building, and they will be virtual in another building. So it's been this chessboard that we're trying to make sure that we can make happen. And we will continually look at it and update it, and making sure that we can continue to provide that service where everybody's comfortable, teachers and parents as well. So that's really what I wanted to tell you about second semester and how we were able to make it happen, and really a shout out to the teachers that are taking this on and honestly taking it on with kind of vigor. I mean, I'm gonna give you one example of a librarian whose first reaction was, okay. And then she met with the team and then she was like, I can do project-based learning, I can do these things. And she's excited now. Now it's still apprehension on her part, I'm sure, but they're trying and they're trying to do what's best for kids. And so I do want to make sure that we recognize that their efforts in it as well. Any questions on the shifts we're making for second semester?
What are you doing in those 3 schools that don't have a library media specialist?
They have a para.
Okay.
There's a para in the building, and then the other buildings that still have them, we are going to be doing some sharing to make sure it happens. We came up with a plan for how devices will work for exchanging devices when a device doesn't work. Who will take that on, because the librarians have customarily done that, and making sure that the library media spaces stay open, so we're able to continue with the book distribution as well.
Any other questions about that?
Okay. So this is hot off the press. The window for iReady closed, actually closes tomorrow, but we were able to take all the much data we had. Most people are through taking their tests. We have just about 3 to 4% that haven't taken the test, stragglers. So we were able to take that data and do a comparison of fall to winter. And then also, I can give you a little statistical information about how that compares to last year, which I think is going to be curious for us, is how do we do pre-pandemic versus a pandemic. So Mr. Sizemore, do you want to cue it up?
Yep.
And again, this is a very broad view up top because we literally just got this and compiled this information together. And then we can give you a little more information after it's over.
Okay. So again, just real quick, nationally norm reference assessment, taken 3 times a year. So this is our second assessment. So this is the first one where we actually get to measure growth from the previous assessment. So we always look forward to seeing what this looks like. It's also an adaptive assessment, so that it changes based on the student's level. So it tries to identify where the student's at. So if student misses questions, it'll drop them down until it finds their grade level. If a student gets a lot of answers right, it'll raise them up to try to find their grade level. Again, we have 3 tiers, traditional tiers. Tier 1 is the student is on grade level or above grade level. Tier 2 is the student is 1 grade level below their current grade. And tier 3 is the student is 2 or more grade levels below their current grade. And then this year we have this expanded model in which they've added 2, one at the top, which means the student is mid or above grade level, and one at the bottom that shows if the students are 3 or more grade levels below. So this really helps us better understand where our top and our bottom students are in the scale. So looking from fall to winter, so on your left, you have a fall, and on the winter, we have, on the right, we have the winter, and this is math, district overall. And so we saw an 11% drop in the number of students who were in that tier 3 category. Same number in the tier 2, not the same students most likely, but same percentage. And then we saw a plus 11% gain in our students who were on or above grade level. So this really kind of indicates that we kind of flowed some students right through, some students from tier 3 to tier 2 and students from tier 2 to tier 1. So that's, it's pretty good growth. And it's very comparable to where we were last year, within 2 points of where we were last year at the same time pre-pandemic.
Sorry, I might pause there. So I think that's key is we'll discuss that later. Statistically, there's negligible difference between last year when we were in class versus now in COVID. So keep that in mind as we continue to talk. All right, sorry, Scott.
Oh, that's okay. And then down at the bottom there is the progress towards annual typical growth. iReady will take all the data of students they test across the country and determine what is the typical amount of growth you can expect from a student over the course of a year. So in math, right now we are at about 50% of that median progress towards annual typical growth. So that may not sound great, but it's actually okay because we're halfway through the year and we've gained about half of the percentage of growth that you could expect students to gain. The problem is that that doesn't account for getting students to where they need to be. It simply really identifies, if you are progressing along a typical growth pattern of other students who take the iReady assessment. So it doesn't necessarily tell us that we're getting our students who are very low up to where they need to be on grade level. So kind of breaking this down a little bit, as Dr. King said, this is preliminary, so the window is actually still open, but we wanted to get you some high-level data as quickly as possible, and then we will continue to break the data down and provide more detailed information about demographics, teacher, classroom level data moving forward. So this is on that 5 level placement. This is where we were in math in the fall. And then here's where we are now. So a couple things that I would highlight. If you look at the number of students that we had in those 2 green categories in the fall, and then the number of students we had in those 2 green categories now, we moved 232 kids in our district into on or above grade level who were not previously there. So that's definitely something that we can celebrate and that we can be proud of. If we go to the other end of the scale and we look at the number of students who were at least 2 grade levels below or more in the fall compared to now, we moved 313 kids out of those red tiers into yellow or green. So again, that's something I think that's positive that we can celebrate. I think the issue really becomes that because we started in such a hole, because we started in such a hole and we had that great growth and we moved that many students, that we still have 647 students who are 2 or more grade levels behind in math. So we definitely have something to be proud of and to celebrate with the movement of those students, but we still obviously have a lot of work to do and we don't want to become complacent about our progress and forget that we still have a lot of students that we need to meet their needs and get them on grade level. Looking at building data, so just real quick, this is the top is the winter, and then the bottom kind of more grayed out is the fall. And just to make it kind of easier to see, I'm doing the percentage increase in on grade level for each of these buildings. So 10 at Conwest, 13 at Belvedere, 14 at Butcher Green, 19 at Meadowmere, and 11 at Martin City for our elementaries. So pretty consistent, good growth there into those on grade level categories. Then looking at our middle schools, we saw plus 7% increase in Martin City and plus 12 at Grandview Middle School. So I think what you'll see is that we have pretty consistent growth across all grade levels in both content areas, but obviously still a lot of work to do. So again, real quick, looking at grade levels, and this is district-wide, it's not broken down by building, but kindergarten, we always expect to see a high increase there because a lot of these students are getting their first academic instruction. So we see a lot of growth in kindergarten. So that's great. Plus 11 in grade 1. Grade 2, a little concerning, only 9. And grade 3, really good with a plus 16 in math. And then looking at grade 4, we have a plus 12 and a plus 13 in grade 5. So as you can see, it's pretty consistent for the most part across the grade levels and the buildings. At the middle school, we have a 14% increase at grade 6, 7-point increase at 7, and a 9 at grade 8. So not as much as we would want to see, but still some positive growth there. Moving on to reading. So again, on the left, you have fall, and on the right, you have winter. We saw a 7% decrease in students in that tier 3 -4 in tier 2, and then +12 points in tier 1. So not as much movement, but still pretty good movement into that on grade level. And with reading, we actually started a little bit higher than math with the number of students who were on grade level. With the progress towards annual typical growth, we're at 48%. So again, at the halfway point, that's, you know, right around where you would expect for typical growth to be with students. So this is in the fall where we were at. And then now with winter with the 5-level placement. Again, if we look at the totals, the number of students in those on grade level categories, we have 225 kids that we moved into on grade level. So definitely a positive. Very similar again in the bottom categories. And we moved 220 kids in reading out of the below grade level into yellow or green. So again, very similar to math and positive. Again, we can't let that make us complacent because we still have 702 students that are 2 or more grade levels behind. Go ahead.
I'm gonna pause just for a second because I want to do that. Is I want you to notice 417 students are 3 or more grade levels behind. That has to be 3rd grade up because we can't, 2nd grade, 1st grade, and kindergarten can't be 3 or more grade levels behind. So that narrows the percent of where those kiddos are falling at. 417 students. So that, yes, I celebrate the growth. That is what I look at because that is where if we don't address this, we exponentially get bigger every year, and we get further and further behind. And how do we address the fact that we get further and further behind with certain students? So that's all right. Go Scott. Sorry.
And you may have saw on the CTE program eval, one of the biggest concerns was academic achievement, you know, before kids get to high school. And this is something Dr. King is, you know, constantly talking about when we're having our real world learning meetings and we're talking about these exciting experiences for our kids. If we don't prepare kids to actually take advantage of those, to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, then it's really for nothing. So we have to address, in order for those programs to be successful, we have to address these academic needs of our students, you know, starting in kindergarten. So moving on to look at reading with buildings. So with elementary, +14 at Con West, +14 at Belvedere, 9 at Butcher Green, 17 at Martin City, and 19 at Meadowmere. We did see the most growth in both areas at Meadowmere, but it wasn't substantially larger than other buildings. Then looking at Grandview Middle, +10, Martin City Middle, +8. Grade levels, again, kindergarten, you expect to see that big jump. 12 at 1st grade. 2nd grade, again, is a little bit of concern in both math and reading. It is our lowest growth. And 3rd grade, again, is, you know, pretty good. It's in both areas, our highest. So that's something we definitely want to dig deeper into and figure out what's going on at 2nd grade and 3rd grade that contributes to this huge discrepancy in the amount of growth. And then 4th grade, we have +9. 5th grade, we have +10. 6th grade, +12. 7th grade, +8. And 8th grade, +5. Definitely some concern there as well. So that's what we have right now. Again, it's high level, but it gives you a good indication of our progress over so far through the school year and the pandemic. And we will definitely provide you with more detailed information as we move forward.
Scott, was the reading about the same percentage point, 2 or 3 percentage points less this year than last year as well?
Yeah, so math and reading both, we were within 2 percentage points of growth from last year. So statistically, there's really no difference. between where we were exactly last year and where we are now as far as growing our students through the iReady assessment, which is interesting and we want to dig into.
Questions?
Questions already have. Chuck, I can feel you have something.
Feel it. Chuck's pensive, I can tell.
Again, with any data, this is initial conversations. So initial conversations were even happening this morning with the principals and teams, and conversations around what do they see and immediately what questions do they have, and then, you know, further conversations about updating their improvement plans based upon what they see and breaking it down. But there's a lot more analysis that needs to be done by teacher, by grade level, and all those particular pieces, by building and looking at all that information. So it is still, like they said, very, very fresh in that particular regard, but it's still, there's a lot of questions and certainly a lot of things to celebrate, but there's a lot of concern still with all those particular components. And it's still, what are we gonna do about it? Is the information, this is what we got. So what are we gonna do about it? What are the plans and how do we update those to make sure that, again, we have an opportunity being in the beginning of second semester. What are we gonna do about it? We can't make excuses for we're in this and pandemic and everything like that. What are we gonna do about this information? This is what we know about our kids. What are we gonna do about it?
Questions?
I guess,
No, you have.
I don't have a question per se. It's interesting, the numbers, the percentages from last year to this year
Mhm.
are there. Right offhand, you say, well, we didn't do anything.
So we discussed that, and like Dr. Rodriguez said, is at this point, what we do is we look at it and we go, I'm noting this. This is an observation I'm making. And then we start developing it. Why is this? And I mean, I can look at it. I mean, we talked about it this morning. It could be a very good thing. Or to me, I'm like, do we matter? If I have kids in my class 5 days a week and I'm making the same growth as if I have them 2 and I'm in the middle of a pandemic, what am I doing? I mean, that becomes the conversation, is what's going on that our growth is about the same, and what do we need to change as our practice as a result of hearing that information? So that becomes the deeper conversation as to what this is. Preliminary, we've looked, and our virtual teachers and our blended teachers are pretty much neck and neck on as far as achievement goes. We don't see a big gap there. I'm looking at second grade. Second grade made the least amount of growth, and they go 4 days a week. Third grade made the most growth, and they go 2 days a week. What happened? And I don't know. I mean, that's what we have to start digging into, is to what is making the difference in the growth, and then looking at where did the students leave off last year versus where they are now. So we've got a lot of analysis to start doing about this. But this is the stuff that I geek out on, is I look at this and I'm like, why? What's going on? And trying to delve down and figure out, pinpointing exactly where it is. We do celebrate that we've moved that many students out of the red and into green. I mean, that's phenomenal. But let's not forget, we still have a large amount of students that we need to figure out what we're doing. And it's not because of a pandemic. It's because we've always had them, and what are we doing? So those become the next conversations.
Well, your questions are the same that roll through my mind right now.
Yep.
As I made my first statement, and I guess that same way, 6th, 7th, 8th grade reading is just.
Yep.
awful.
Has been for years.
So was math, but reading was even worse.
We were looking at.
And you're right, and I thank you for focusing in on the red, the 2 and 3 year gap.
I don't want to focus just on the negative. I do want to celebrate the fact that our teachers have made incredible, there is a lot of growth, and with phenomenal adversity, for this goes. But I think if we lose sight of reality, and we gloss over what the reality is, I think that that's when we become complacent and we don't push. And we cannot let that happen.
Well, I don't think the board will let that happen.
Do you think that part of it might be because parents almost have to be more engaged with the school stuff going on right now?
I would hope we would make more than.
Well, I mean, because you know, they're not, the kids aren't just off in school. The parents have to be engaged somewhat.
That is, and I think that we have done a better job of partnering with parents this
Right.
year in a more intentional way. And I think that will continue. What I'm hoping is the lessons we've learned here will, when we come back, we're here for, 5 days a week, the partnerships that we form with parents and the parents' understanding now of curriculum and curriculum things, because it's just been going on, will propel us a little bit. But what I warn everybody about is hope's not a strategy, so I've got to come up with something that's actually concrete. And I can't hope all these things can happen, but where's my reality and what do I have control over to move forward with? And I think I think we have parents helping more. I think we have teachers that are thinking differently. I think all of those things are in place. So it is exciting to me to think that change when we come back, keep it in place, and will we start seeing that growth that we should see based on that?
This is kind of a side note, but do we have an update from Desi about map testing?
It is going on.
Other than we are going to have map testing, right now, that's all we for sure know. We don't know a lot of particulars yet, and they're coming up with their plan, but
They're making it up as they go too.
they will be testing this year. That's been pretty adamant from the very beginning, from my first conversations with the commissioner in August, that she is very much in support, and the state school board still wants to get an understanding of what's happening across the state. So there will be testing. How it's going to look and how we're all going to make that happen, and those pieces is still a little bit in the works.
And it will not be able to be virtual. They will have to come in to site. So if they've chosen virtual, they will still have to
Physically come in.
to take that assessment. And then what will that look like if a parent truly has a fear, or there's a child with a health issue? How will we be able to mitigate those circumstances for them to feel safe to come in? I think there's a lot that's going to go into this as well.
That's coming from Desi, that they have to be in.
They have to be on site too.
Yes.
Okay.
Have to be on site, EOCs and MAP. We'll be glad to provide additional information as we discover and as we find and as we move forward and when digging through this information. The great thing I feel, and Frederick can I think back me on this, is our principals are into this data now and how this is going to transform their conversations that they're going to have going forward. Let's celebrate this growth, but let's look here too. And what are we going to do for second semester?
So I have one question, and Chuck sort of touch on it. The middle school.
Yep.
So while I understand that this data is new and, there's definitely positives, my concern is that especially at Martin City Middle, those numbers have been bad for a long time. What are your thoughts on that, about why and how we're going to fix that?
We asked the both principals today, what's going on there? I mean, both of them were kind of thing. And they were quite transparent, and they said, we have some instruction issues. We have some issues we need to work with instruction on. We need to work with our PLCs. We need to work with our grade levels. They feel that they are primed to begin a journey upwards. They had to change some mindsets. They had to do some other things as well. But they said it was some instructional issues as well. So.
And a reminder of, certainly Martin City in particular, as you said, certainly a new principal in that seat, looking at things very differently.
Yes.
If you remember not too long ago, hearing her presentation to the board and the things that her and Dr. Smith specifically want to accomplish. We have a very high collaboration between the two middle schools right now. The teams meet more and the teachers meet more now than ever before. And so I think all those pieces continue to help us identify where the issues continue to be and how do we identify them. So those 30, 60, 90 plans and all those pieces that you kind of heard all continue to get updated around that. But each one of those principals have some specific already strategies that they're looking at. But they're also diving in and seeing what are they missing, what are they not seeing in that particular regard. So the data really helps them do that. But it does tell the whole story, that what they're seeing in the classrooms is what's telling them the full picture.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right, well, this is just informational, so we do not need a motion on this. So we will go ahead and move on. I do
No
not-
items submitted for the next category.
Perfect. I like it. That means we keep moving on. All right, next, resource stewardship. We've got a bond project. Dr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, we've had this conversation a few different times to the board, obviously over the last several years, and one of the glaring things that I continued to come back to and said that we would be planning on and we'd be going through, and I know I've had several questions, but I absolutely was on record that we were going to be fixing and changing the entrance to the Martin City complex. And so it doesn't happen overnight, and obviously those things take planning and such. So, but I am very, very proud to be able to put this before you this evening and know that a lot of work has gone into this, but it is exciting. It's going to look amazing. And I can tell you the principal right now, the staff that's there, everyone that's had a handle in this is extremely excited to see this to fruition. So additional information that we need to provide, Ms. Cook.
Yeah, again, just really super excited to see this coming to for you tonight. As you know, Martin City was challenging with the current configuration to try to create that security vestibule. So we have been working with Hollis and Miller on that. The data, the information's there as far as is our typical process to make sure we're compliant. We did ask for a base bid for the secure entry and the office remodel. Alternate one was for the corridor renovation. It's really quite key to the project, but we wanted to see what the cost was of that and was it prohibitive? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? But we believe we're okay with that. And then we added into it, since they are there and doing walls, those nice partitions that Dr. King was talking about that they've recently opened up to expand their space. We are getting rid of those and filling that with a wall, but it will have a door so they can still be collaborative. But if you've ever been in that section of the elementary school, the elementary portion of them, those walls are, they need to be replaced. And then we did, of course, ask for some unit pricing, just for some of the face brick, either for cleaning or tuck pointing as needed that way. If the need does arise, and it will, we'll have that kind of locked in as a price. What I was really excited about was we received 8 bids for this project. It's been a while since we've received 8 bids on a project, so pretty excited about that. They were clustered pretty well together, which is always a good indication that you're probably getting as fair a price as you're going to from these companies. The low bid was Straub Construction for $592,000. We have not, the district has not worked with Straub Construction during my tenure anyway. However, the architects on this project, John has known this company for about 30 years, he said, and this is actually the company they wanted to do their remodel of their office. I don't think it ended up being able to work out that way, but that comes as a pretty high recommendation if that's who they wanted to select as their team. So happy to respond to questions, but we are asking for approval to do the secure entry office remodel and partition infill for an amount not to exceed $592,000. Again, there may be some additional costs related to that, the brick as they work on that. I will point out there's a couple of attachments that show, the first one shows the layout. You'll see that we're kind of flipping some stuff and putting the counseling on the other side of where it is now and moving the office area up closer to the entrance. There will be doors that block off. So that's why we had to do that corridor widening, because we will be changing the traffic flow within that building. And then showed just a kind of a rendition of what that office area may look like as we move forward. Again, Dr. Harris is really, the whole team is really excited about what that's going to look like. And as you know, on both our safety surveys and our Grandview 10 and Grandview 8 surveys, this has been an item. They've expressed concern over this, and we've had concerns over this. So just really excited that we're finally able to, well, hopefully, if you approve this, finally able to get this project completed and complete the secure entries at all of our buildings.
Happy to answer any questions.
I don't have a question, but yes, it's nice to see it going to happen.
Yeah.
It's been a long time happening, and I know you all put a lot of work into it. And Ms. Cook already answered the question I was gonna ask. I'm not always happy to take the low bid, but Ms. Cook's concerns was there also, and having the architect vouching for these folks. Again, we haven't had any contact with them over the years. Sounds like you did a good job of researching these folks. So, happy to see it on here.
Me too.
They're a good company. I've worked as a subcontractor underneath them before.
Good. We heard good things for sure.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, well, this does require our approval. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the contract with Stroud Construction Incorporated for the secure entry office remodel and operable partition infill at Martin City K-8 school in the amount not to exceed $592,000.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved in second. Any discussion about the motion? All right, well then, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Nope, passes unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to family and community involvement.
Yeah, we do have a presentation this evening. Ms. Angela Cordier is online. I'm not sure if Ms. Deanna wants to introduce or have a little discussion around that.
No, you all know Ms. Cordier. She is in charge of our, what has gone from centralized enrollment to online enrollment a year early, and we are very pleased with the results. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. So here we go, Ms. Cordier.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, I am so excited to be presenting in front of you all. It's always a good thing when you have good news, so it's definitely a good thing. Very quickly, I want to go over our online registration and enrollment survey. The survey window was from 11/2 to 11/30. It was very important that we received the responses of both our Spanish responses and English responses. So I definitely wanted to share that information with you. Just to make a distinction, online registration was what was completed by the district, the back office. Online enrollment is what was done at the individual site levels or at the schools. So you will see that at 90% of the responses that we received was in favor of the online registration and enrollment. I'm going to share with you that the committee was extremely nervous, especially when we realized that that was the direction that we were going to be choosing. Actually, it was, when we were discussing, it was 2 years before time, but definitely we had to make that decision. It was in the best decision for staff, for our parents, and for students. So we dived in with both feet. As you can tell, our parents, we wanted to make sure, although we were not in school, the parents were aware that they needed to be able to access Parent Portal. So we asked, there were what we called was a pre-registration, and we asked parents if they could get into Parent Portal. As you can see, most of them did. 90% of the responses that the online process was clear. That was something that we worked extremely hard on, making sure that once our parents got into Parent Portal and started the registration process, that they would be able to be successful in it. What we also did is we worked very hard on frequently asked questions. This year, we posed those questions both in Spanish and in English. And as you can see, it was our Spanish speaking population that really used the website to get those questions answered. 90% also felt that the registration questions were easy to understand. So that was really important. Some of the comments that we received was what I love. Registration was excellent. That's like the best that you can be. It was so much better. Please don't change. Don't go back. 100% better than centralized enrollment. So overall, you can see that this was a good time to actually jump right in, and that's exactly what we did. And the registration part, they felt was really good. A part of the online registration is, of course, residency, and it's also immunization. With residency, we knew that there would be some backwards and forwards with emails between our back office and our parents. A lot of times it was just a very simple mistake where we need a current bill and the bill was over 30 days old. So that would take a day or two for them to read the email, get a current bill, and then go ahead, take a picture, upload it, and send it back. So that was some of the time. Our affidavit process, usually they are with centralized enrollment. They're in one big room. There's lines that people that are living with people or don't, for one reason or another, they need an affidavit. This year, it was all online, and we find that we didn't have that many concerns. There were quite a few that they don't need an affidavit, which is good, but everything was good. There were a couple that they submitted the documents. It was the backward and forward, but we were able to get a lot of our affidavits done. It took that entire time, but there were not any real hiccups about that. Immunization shots, you would think that that would be pretty easy. It was kind of challenging this year, and it was because a lot of doctors' offices did not begin to do immunizations until in June. So parents knew that because Mary Rhodes worked so hard, she informed parents that they would need MMRs or they would need the meningitis shot. So parents knew in March that their kiddos needed the shots. However, doctors were like, sorry, we can't help you. So we did struggle. Our parents struggled a little bit in getting the shots, but what we were really lucky to end up being we worked with the Jackson County Health Department, and we were able to be the South satellite for them. So there was one day where students from Lee Summit Center, Hickman Mills could actually come to CARES gym and receive their immunization. That helped a lot of parents out. And we did have quite a few parents that took that took that opportunity to actually come to within the district to get their shots. I can share with you that once Mary did get a rhythm going, our parents were pretty happy that the shots were done and that their kids would be enrolled. There was a little misconception with parents. They did not know that although their kids were going all virtual, the state still required that students be fully immunized. So therefore, that was the only little hiccup that we had, but we were able to get, once parents knew that, we were able to get our kiddos definitely their shots and ready for school. The enrollment part, that is where we gave the routing sheets, and it was turned over from the district. It was turned over actually to the schools. As you can tell, they were informed from the school on the next step. What we did discover is a lot of times, unfortunately, with the program that we use with Parent Portal, it would give very generic Thank you for submitting your registration. Thank you for uploading your residency. Those were very generic emails. So therefore, when it was time for the enrollment piece, some parents thought that they were completed and they weren't. Some parents were like, well, what about transportation? So that was, I know that this is something that we will continue to work on. It was new for all of us. And so there were some struggles, but all in all, the satisfaction was still very high with our parents. Some of the additional comments that we had, everything was good. They hope that we continue. There were a couple of parents that shared concerns that they were concerned about them uploading some of their personal information. I believe that we have started talking about a way that we can ensure that parents know that the information that they are sending us is secure. And I have talked with Alonia, and we're going to make sure that we add in something that we're going to share, the videos. We're going to say that very frequently, that the information that they are sending, that they are uploading is secure. We have started our planning for the 21-22 school year online registration and enrollment. Our first meeting was a couple of weeks ago. Some of the things that we are discussing that we can improve on for next year is definitely videos for parents. Although we had a very extensive frequently asked questions, some of our parents, I'm like that. Some days I just don't want to read. Let me look at it and I can understand it. So we are looking at developing videos so our parents will be able to access Parent Portal. Also, we want to get additional workers, especially with immunization that last week or two before we turn it over to the schools. Also, we want to ensure that parents, like I repeated, parents' information, we want to ensure them that their information that they send, it is secure. So give me just a second. This is the committee members for this year. We went from with centralized enrollment, we had a committee of 15 to 20. As you can tell, we're quite small now. We're small, but we're mighty. We've also started our ORE timeline, which goes from our first meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, all the way, as you can see, until July. We are hoping that we will be able to continue to improve and to definitely address any concerns that our parents may have. But definitely online registration and enrollment is going to be our new normal. And so are there any questions?
I'll just add that being a parent doing online enrollment was amazing. I loved it. So thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, I would just say we were really pleased how it did turn out, even though we really weren't ready for that. Angela and her team did a lot of work to get this off the ground and get it done. We had to, there are a lot of people involved in centralized enrollment. Well, we just really had to reallocate people to get things done way before that time, so that like Mary and her team getting all that done, and they were just fantastic. So Monica, your response was very common, and just really pleased at the work that they did and positioned us for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right. That is just informational, so we'll move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cordier.
Thank you.
We will move on. Strategic governance, sir.
Yeah, in item A, obviously, this is an item that comes around every single year. Around this same time, we have this conversation, present this information to you. I'll remind you that there's a potpourri group that I meet with on a regular basis. This year, we've met maybe a few additional times through a variety of other conversations, because this is a two-way communication group that I use for any number of purposes. I share information with them, I gain feedback from them on what they're hearing and what's going on. Obviously, one of the predominant things that that group does also is to meet on the calendar. So a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, a lot of things about why are we doing this? What are we doing? We try to look at it differently. The calendar that was proposed last year that we're currently in was very different than what we had done previously in a variety of different ways, with the days on the front end rather than the back end and sporadically out there, changes in September, no PD days at the very beginning, and just a variety of different things, including the initial calendar of starting on August 24th due to the state mandate. So that's still in place right now. And so obviously there are some conversations about whether that will be waived with the pandemic and could we start earlier, but this is the calendar that we have in that particular regard with the earliest start date right now of what is possible. What I'll remind you also is that all the work that goes into that, I can promise you a lot of conversations, feedback from the sites, questions that people have. Why don't you just move this to that? That doesn't make any sense. What I can tell you is this committee does a lot of work around this and understanding that you move one thing, there is another reaction to that, and it's going to add another challenge. So when you look at the number of days in a quarter or a semester and you think of just move that date over here, there are millions of other ramifications to just moving one piece there. And so we do look at it at different levels, because what's going to happen sometimes at the middle school level might be different because they have some quarter level classes. And so when you look at some things and you move something out one way, well, this quarter can be a little shorter. That could potentially cause a challenge to that. If second semester is shorter or longer than first semester by any number of days, that could provide a different level of instruction because we have some classes that are semester built. So there's a lot of pieces to this that I won't go into any more detail on, but I can promise you it goes through a lot of versions. This year, I think we only had 5, although I would actually say that's probably more like 7, because she just, Kathy sometimes just makes some changes to a couple of them, but probably at least 7 versions of this calendar have gone through a variety of different feedback pieces. And this is the one that the committee has provided for us to present to you this evening. So happy to respond to any questions. There's certainly a lot of things that are still very different on this calendar than what we've done in the past, but some feedback things that we took from sites to make some changes that hopefully the staff will appreciate.
Questions? What has been the feedback from this year about having second quarter or third term, depending on which building you're in, and after the Christmas break? Has that been a good thing or a challenge?
It's not unheard of. In this district, it hasn't happened in several years, but it did happen previously. It has happened before. You know, when we moved the start date later, that was one piece of it as well that caused that. I would say a little bit of both. There are some that don't mind it. There are a lot of people that much would rather it be before, but they're not necessarily wanting sometimes what that would take in order to make that happen. And us starting later and it changing the number of days and stuff like that can cause any number of different issues. It changed a lot with a lot of different school districts as well. I mean, we were not the only one that were already going to go into January to do that as well. But it's like anything, you do something for so many years and you change it, it causes ramifications one way or the other. There are some that didn't mind it, and there were some that didn't like it at all. So, you know, there's any kind of change sometimes is going to cause that. So the one piece of information that we got was coming back and actually starting school and going to school on that first day back was a little jarring for some of our staff, and certainly, you know, caused some issues there. We talked about what we could do and was there something we could do, and ultimately there wasn't enough feedback for us to make that additional change, because obviously we could add another day there, but that's a contract day, so who works, and then we only have so many contracted days, so we have to cut another contract a day somewhere else, and then the student day has to go on at the end of the year. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with every one of those pieces.
What was the discussion around, so you made the comment about quarter classes, because I know in the middle school, there's a lot of that. I think that's the only place there's quarter classes, right? So like Q1 is showing 38 days, Q2, 48 days. So let's say health, I think, is a quarter class. One semester, they're gonna get 10 more days than the other ones. So how do you balance the instruction when you've got compressed versus elongated?
We had that exact conversation, and Dr. King and had the conversations with the site principals. And again, while there will be some pieces, neither one of them, with the feedback that they received, said that that was a game changer of, you know, we will be okay. There will be some things that we'll need to tweak as long as we know that that's going to happen. But that was one of our main concerns when that happened. The reason we did that was through additional feedback that we heard from staff of wanting parent-teacher conferences at a time past the quarter so that they could actually give information and how they would do that. I think I'm saying that right, but moving when the quarter would end and when parent-teacher conferences would be, so that teachers had more time between those two dates. This year and last year, it was more compressed, and they really didn't like that, and I understand that. So we actually made that change, but that one change was going to mean that that quarter was going to look differently, and so therefore we had to make sure that the feedback was going to be okay, the teachers were going to be okay, the principals were going to be okay. So they assured us that they would be able to take that, it would be okay, and it was not going to cause major issues. It wasn't fantastic, certainly wasn't ideal, but the benefit that they were going to receive was going to outweigh that.
A lot of it, those 2 weeks would have been at the beginning of the year had we not had to have
Yes, ma'am.
the changes. So, okay, any other questions? All right, well, this does require a motion.
I move that we approve the calendar for school year 2021-2022 as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the calendar for the 21-22 as presented. Any further discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you.
Move on to B, policies on first read, and there is policy ADF there for your first read review. Kathy, anything to add?
Not really, just that one of the responsibilities of our wellness committee is to review policies and procedures, and so we took, so there's 10 of us, I think, that are part of the steering committee that met on this, and so everybody took their little piece of it, and we talked a lot about it, came up with revisions. I think we haven't revised this policy for a few years, and so good time to do it. So it stems from input from everybody who serves on the Wellness Steering Committee.
A lot of good work.
So there's a lot of work in this one now. All right, any questions or comments on this? All right, then we do need to approve it.
I move that we approve revisions to policy ADF as presented on first reading.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve revisions policy ADF as presented. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you.
On the next item, we do have a variety of different things that come to us, as you know, from MSBA as laws change and different things that we find out about, and they update different policies. There's been a lot of changes through Title IX regulations and going through a lot of different processes and a lot of different things. We know that we've gone through a lot of trainings and things that we know we needed to update. And so MSBA has sent this one, which is a new policy, ACA, and it would be this alternative policy adoption piece. But there has been a lot of work, I know, in our district already. I know Ms. Deanna heads up most of that effort, and we have reviewed that. Certainly our legal counsel as well. And so happy to answer any questions, but anything to add?
Yeah, I would just like to add that for those, just as a reminder, those who haven't been through this before, normally, of course, we do policies on first reading. Then the next month, we give opportunity for additional input and then do policy on second reading. If you contract with an association that is approved, which MSBA is, to update your policies for you, then you can use the alternative policy adoption method. So therefore, everything that comes to us from MSBA, we could use this method, although we have chosen to continue our tradition of making sure we give plenty of input for people who might be impacted by the policy. So we are choosing to use the alternative policy adoption on ACA because the requirements exist now, and in fact have been in place for maybe since the late summer, I think. MSBA did advise us, you want to make sure you go through your legal counsel. You want to make sure you get training before you actually adopt this thing. So that is what we did. And once we had all that completeness in and notified you that was the case, then that's why we're bringing it for you now under the alternative policy adoption so that we don't come back for second reading. As soon as you approve it, it is effective.
Thank you for that information. Any questions on this policy? Comments? All right, we do need to have a motion to approve this.
I move that we adopt new policy ACA per the alternative adoption procedures outlined in policy BF.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded to adopt policy ACA for the alternative adoption procedures outlined in policy BF. Any discussion on this motion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you.
That's it for us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, report of board members. I'm sure we have some down here. Yes?
Yes. So GEF has not met since the trivia night, but I wouldn't be too surprised if we don't see this come out again after COVID to have trivia on virtually. Because it was a good experience.
It was amazing.
It was fun.
Yeah. So we haven't discussed that. That's just my opinion. Heroes for Education will not be virtual. It will be April 10th. So.
I got plenty of time to be ready, so.
Yes, so that's our hope. And then we are still planning to do Distinguished Alumni Gala of some sort this year.
I'm not sure if it'll be in person or virtual.
We have had conversations this year about combining the employee recognition with the Distinguished Alumni, but we've kind of put that on hold because of COVID for now. So, but we are going to continue with the gala in some one form or another.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, slow them up. And that brings us to our favorite part. And I'll need a motion for it.
A second.
Properly moved and second to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we are out of here. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.